Hey, so I thought I would share some of my thoughts about the stock market because it's interesting. I don't own any stocks, by the way. I used to trade stocks for about 10 years and follow it quite a lot. I stopped about, 7 years ago? Yeah, it's been a while. Um, so I didn't post here on YouTube before it started going down about it went down about 15% before I started talking about it on YouTube here, but I was warning with my family, um, and warning here and on social media about the virus and all that. Um, Now I did talk about it here and say that I think I forget all the stuff I said here, but we had the 10% decline, biggest decline I guess since 1987. I'd have to check. I'm not sure. Like a lot of times, people say that kind of stuff, and they talk in nominal terms, which is really stupid. You should only think in terms of percentages, when it comes to the stock market, for various reasons, including that there's been inflation. So it's pretty irrelevant what has happened nominally. But yeah, they say the biggest decline since 1987. I posted here saying, I thought that on Friday it might go up because there's so many people who think it's a buying opportunity, and they would have time on Thursday night and possibly on the weekend. We'll see. I mean, it went up like 10%. It's a huge move, and I want to talk about that move. But yeah, it went up like that on Friday. And I was saying, yeah, people will take the time to look for which stocks they want to buy on Thursday night, and then on Friday they'll make some purchases. And we saw a huge rally just in I forget, the last 30 minutes or hour. Maybe half of the gains or more were at the end, and it was as Trump was doing a press conference that he was announcing the national emergency. It was during that, and even after that. Now, let's just think about that. Does it make sense that when the president comes out announcing a national emergency, that the stock market would rally based on that? I mean, one thing you could say is that, well, it means that the administration is taking it seriously. They're going to take more steps to battle the virus. You could think that people are suddenly buying because, they're gonna do more to stop the virus, so it's going to be good. I don't think that's the thinking of most people who are buying. I think that unfortunately the virus has been politicized in America, just from everything I've seen. I've seen tons of people not taking it seriously, and I think possibly every single one of them have been conservative or right leaning, and I think it goes. I think that how we feel about politics has a lot to do with our physiology or our brain, our DNA, etc., and it has to do with kind of what you tend to worry about more about certain things compared to others. There's this guy Jonathan Haidt who studies this kind of stuff, and we see some strong correlations. Ultimately, everything you do and think is a product of your DNA interacting with the environment. So we can't say, you can rule out that DNA has nothing to do with it, but yeah, and men have Y chromosomes that women don't have, so they're gonna have their brains work differently. That's just a fact. You have right-leaning people. Well, there's in America, Republicans are more likely to be men, Democrats more likely to be women. Well, I'll phrase it this way. If you're a Republican, you're more likely to be a man than a woman. If you're a Democrat, vice versa. So for me, Republican reflects more masculine thinking. Democrat or left-leaning is more feminine thinking. You also have, of course, this is politically incorrect. I don't care. But women in the past, okay, while we evolved, most of them pretty much all of them would get pregnant. Well, I don't know about all, but it's like 80% would get pregnant, would go on to reproduce, and while they were pregnant, they could not fend for themselves, in the sense that they could not do the hunting and gathering necessary to supply themselves with food. So they were dependent during that time. And a lot of women getting pregnant maybe 7-8 times during their lifetime, etc. So, it's different. You have a bunch of kids and maybe half of them die or whatever. So there's a lot of dependency. So I'm saying that the more feminine mind is wired for that kind of dependency, wanting the government to do things. Okay, so that's politics. And this virus surprised me, but I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that it's been politicized in America. You see difference among political lines. Lately, I think most people are taking it seriously, at least in the media, both also conservative media taking it seriously. But I've seen hordes and hordes of people not taking it seriously, saying this is just like the flu, it's media propaganda, it's what is it? There's all kinds of, they say like this conspiracy kind of thinking, like, look at who benefits, use your brain, it's a media hoax, and all this stuff. And hold on, I want to bring up a post. Yeah, they think it's BS or a media hoax. And what I think that they think that America's special, and what happened in Italy can't happen in America, which is really magical thinking. The virus doesn't care if it's on Italian soil or American soil, and the more people out there who don't take it seriously, the more it's going to spread. So, it's a bit of a catch-22. If nobody takes it seriously, you're screwed. If everyone takes it seriously, then maybe it wasn't something you needed to worry about. But everyone has to take it seriously for that to happen. So this is what I said, because like I said before, I've noticed it seems to only be conservatives who are like that. For whatever reason, it's partly you have the differences in media, but partly you have the psychological differences in ways of thinking, like I referred to. I'm sure there are some people on the left, but I haven't even seen a single one. Everyone I see who's not taking this seriously seems to be on the right. You've still got people saying it's like a flu. Look, the numbers, we don't know exactly the death rate. Somewhere between 0.5% and 4%. We can't really be sure. If you look at, I don't want to get all into the numbers. There are very naive ways of counting that result in very high percentages. There's the number that the WHO mentioned is like 3.4%. Hopefully and probably it's less, because the denominator should be greater. But the numbers coming out of Italy are really bad, really high rates of case fatality. Bottom line is, you don't want this virus, okay? Yeah, if you're under 60, chances of dying after you get it are maybe 1 in 500, maybe less. But you don't want this also because we don't necessarily know if there's permanent impacts from this virus. And some kind of expert online was telling me this, a health professional or somebody who studies virology or something. Take other viruses like herpes. Herpes goes and lives in your spine and then comes out later. That's why people have herpes outbreaks. When they're not having an outbreak, it lives in your spine, and then it comes out occasionally. HIV, you can get infected with HIV, and I think you can be healthy for years before it starts really doing damage. It's a new virus. We don't know all the potential of how bad this could be. Okay. And also, even if you survive, possible you could get permanent lung damage. I don't want to, scare people, but let's be realistic. I want to be realistic. That's possible. So you don't want this. You don't want to be having it and spreading it to people, period. Especially not people in your family, etc. No matter what your age is. We all need to fight it. So getting back to the stock market, I've just observed that it's only you guys, conservatives. If you're conservative and watching this and you're not taking it seriously, you need to start taking it seriously. I've seen so many people who don't understand basic math. This is not most people. but they say it's just as bad as the flu. This has like maybe 30 times the death rate of the flu. Okay, just forget about the flu. It's not the flu, it's much worse. Period. I don't want to hear that bullshit anymore because I've seen way too much of it. Just over and over again still. Alright. So that's what I'm saying. So that's why the market can rally 10% like that, especially when Donald Trump starts talking. Because it's the conservatives that are behind that rally, okay? They see when Trump started making that announcement that it's a national emergency, what happens is left-leaning people are just sitting there watching it, or they're doing something they just continue what they were doing before. They're not even watching it. Whereas what I think happened, a bunch of right-leaning people, it just triggered them to buy more, regardless of whether the contents of the press release or anything. Just if you believe that this is a buying opportunity in the stock market, and you're conservative and you like Trump, and you're just sitting there, and then you see, announcement from Trump, let's see, and then the announcement comes and you just buy. That's what I think. That's my explanation. Now maybe there were fears that it would be an announcement of something much worse, and when it wasn't so bad, it got alleviated. That is also possible. Now, I don't want to make any claims really for the short term next week. I could see it going up for the same reasons I said before. People taking the time to digest what's going on, to find some stocks that they like. That takes time. You can't just react instantly to situations and know exactly what you want to buy. You might take some time to sell certain stocks and buy others. Well, actually, see, here's my point. It's much quicker to sell stocks. You know those stocks already. They're in your portfolio. You've known about them. You're watching them. You can sell those right away. You know what they are. To find stocks to buy takes longer, takes research, and takes time. So that's what I'm saying. Over the weekend, people think about what they want to buy. They might purchase more on Monday. Another thing that might happen is more announcements of fiscal or monetary stimulus. That can really boost markets. But what also can happen is bad news, more bad news. So I'm not really making any claims for the short run. But I want to talk about kind of medium term over the next month or two. I think that things are getting a lot worse in America. Don't shoot the messenger. This is just what I think. There's a lot of magical thinking about this is America, so virus isn't going to be here as bad as, say, Italy, for example. It's just magical thinking. I mean, Italy has a very modern healthcare system, and a lot of stuff that applies for them applies to America. And so basically this virus has been spreading. I think, let's get this out of the way. Clearly, if you do nothing, this virus doubles at a very scary rate. Somewhere between 2 days to 6 days, I think it doubles. Probably 3 or 4 days. And of course it can't do that forever. Eventually it saturates the market, if you will, of infected. It can't multiply forever because there's not infinite humans to infect. Eventually, all exponential growth has to eventually stop at some point due to constraints. And so, yeah, it must eventually peak, but it could peak when it's already infected 3 billion humans or 6 billion humans or something. We want to avoid that kind of thing from happening, or at least really slow it down. So, if we did nothing at all, it just keeps doubling and doubling, and it's going to be a big problem. It would be like Spanish flu. And something I want to say about Spanish flu, because there was this chart going around, I don't know, maybe I'll put it on the screen, maybe not, but it compares COVID-19 to other flus and diseases, and it puts the Spanish flu at a mortality rate of 10%. Now, I've looked into this. We really don't know. In fact, I'll put a link in the description to an article that I thought was good. It talks about the same problem I ran into months ago when I was trying to figure out what the death rate was for the Spanish flu. We really don't know, but I guess estimates think like for most of the world it was a 10% death rate, but in places with good healthcare like America, it was like 2 or 3%. That seems like a reasonable assessment, but we really don't know. But I don't think that in America it was a 10% death rate. I think it was closer to 2 or 3%. In other words, it was pretty close to what this virus is doing. So don't automatically assume that what happened with the Spanish flu has nothing to do with what's happening here. Okay, and so that's out of the way. If we do nothing, clearly this is a disaster that would probably kill millions of people in the world within a year if we did nothing. Now, then there's some lighter things you can do. Restricting travel can sometimes hurt. Like we're seeing all these airports just full of people. But I think restricting it from China in the beginning was a good call. But right now, what's happening with Europe, it's just all these airports jammed with people. I don't know about that. My gut feeling is it was bad. But okay, so we got all these kind of softer things to do, like restricting travel, like shutting down stores, making the public aware so that they wash hands and they avoid crowds and stuff. So we'll be really lucky if that's effective in slowing down the rate of spread sufficiently. I just personally don't think that it will. I think that it will continue to spread quite a lot. And honestly, I think that America's going to be like Italy. I think in 1 or 2 weeks, I think we're going to start seeing overwhelmed hospitals. And, part of that is just that this has been spreading and we've been really unaware of the spread that's been going on. America's been way behind in testing, and it's just been festering now for weeks, growing, without us really having a good handle on what is happening. And again, don't have magical thinking about, this is America. So look, if you think the healthcare system in America is great, okay, but it's not mainly spreading in hospitals. It's mainly spreading out there in the world where people are just in contact with each other. And so there's nothing about that that's special in America. So I think, this has been going on for weeks. Personally, I think that if you know that you're going to have to do a lockdown in the future, best thing is just to do it right now, as fast as possible. I think you'll look back later and see that that you should have done the lockdown earlier. Now, I follow this guy, John Campbell. I'll put a link in the description. Great expert on what's going on. He gives daily updates. In fact, he was just on Fox News yesterday, I believe. And yeah, he's great. And he says, I guess this is according to some study, if they had done the lockdown in China, I think it was 2 weeks earlier. It might have been a week, but I think it was 2 weeks earlier. If they had done it earlier, they could have reduced all the numbers by 95%. Numbers of infected, numbers of dead, etc. Because when you have exponential growth going on, 1 or 2 weeks in the beginning makes a huge difference, okay, from where it ends up later. So that's why I say, once it looks like we're going to have to do a lockdown, just do it now. Unfortunately, I don't think there's enough. I guess there's not enough political support in America, but it looks to me like the soft efforts of washing hands and telling people to avoid crowds, that's not going to work. We got these airports jammed full of people. You've got tons of people hoarding in Costco's in big groups, and I think the damage is done. It's too late, and it's just a matter of time before it becomes like Italy. That's my opinion. That's really it. I do want to talk about what I think that would do for the markets. I think that, one, just locking down will cause crashes in the markets, because obviously when all the stores are closed, most of they make exceptions for like supermarkets and stuff like that, but the rest of the, all the restaurants and all that kind of stuff, all closed. When people see that, I think markets are going to crash. But also I think if the hospitals get overwhelmed, which I think is going to happen personally, you're going to have a lot of horror stories in the news, on social media, floating around that really are genuine horror stories. And it's going to be a disaster. I think the markets are going to go way, way down. In addition to that, the market has been too expensive for years, probably since 2013. But, if you look at PE ratios, it's still well above its average PE ratio. I'd have to check again because it changes so often, but it's like average PE ratio right now is like 23 or something. I expect that to go to 10, okay, times earnings that are going to be lower. I think we're going to have a global recession with all the shutting down that's going to happen. Japan has not shut down or anything, and the preliminary numbers for GDP, I believe we're down like 7% or something. This was like a week or two ago. Don't quote me on that. I have a memory of that, when the markets crashed here a bit. But yeah, look it up for yourself. And that's without lockdown. That's just people worried about the virus, not going out, etc. All this stuff happening in Europe. Probably you're going to have lockdowns in America. That's going to be a pretty big global recession. That's what I think. So you're going to have reduced earnings, and you're going to have an ugly PE multiple, earnings multiple, on top of reduced earnings. Okay. So, if GDP goes down a few percent, earnings go down a lot more than that. Then multiply a PE ratio that's more suitable, like 10 on top of that. I think the market's going to go down. I'll be conservative and say I think it's going to go down at least 20 or 30%, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it go down 50%, 60, 70%. Personally, that's what I think. That's my opinion. But yeah, again, for Monday, I think, I just don't know. For the next week, I don't know. But I think 2 weeks, a month from now, 2 months from now, I think it's going to be really ugly. I could be totally wrong. I'm just sharing my opinion. And again, this was not, obviously there's a virus going on, and people sometimes think it's in poor taste to talk about money in the markets. But I don't know, I think it's interesting. Not all my videos here are about the markets. I don't own any stocks. I'm not short any stocks at all. All my money is with startups, and that's it. Invested years ago. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Check my Patreon if you're interested in supporting the channel. And subscribe star. Thank you. Bye.